it's a similar situation with Bari. None of this is about them calling me out for anything I've said or haven't said. It's about Israel. Those two are very ardent Israel activists, which is fine. But they don't get to dictate how the rest of us feel about Israel or what we do with respect to our friends and our friends' opinions on Israel.
Well, that was Megyn Kelly saying that Bari Weiss, who now runs CBS News, demands that we all bow our heads to Israel. And the right wing has gotten sick of that and they don't want to do it anymore. And the left wing, of course, totally agrees. The people that don't agree are the establishment and, of course, the folks in Israel. So today, they wrote an op-ed in the Jerusalem Post, a guy named Zvika Klein, and he talks about how Bari Weiss is such a hero for giving us the correct information here in America. And so now he's celebrating that she has taken over CBS and is doing Israeli propaganda. I'm gonna give you some of the quotes here in a second. If I said the same things he said in that op-ed, they'd call me an anti-Semite. They'd be like, what do you mean pro-Israel people trying to control the media? Well, interesting, but in Israel, they totally admit it and celebrate it. So let's go to the Jerusalem Post. Here's his op-ed. The New York Times tried to cancel Bari Weiss. By the way, they didn't, she quit. And now she's running CBS and they're very happy about it. So Zvika writes in, I've been obsessively following every internal development at CBS News since Bari Weiss took over. The staff revolts, the leaked memos, the reorganizations, the public statements from unnamed employees claiming she's destroying journalism. The whole messy, dramatic transformation. Why? It's hard to say exactly. No, it's not hard to say. That's because you're obsessed with Israel. I mean, it makes sense, you're an Israeli. That part makes sense. The people obsessed with Israel that are pretending to be Americans, that's a different story. So that's why you care about it. And in fact, you're about to explain that. He says, maybe because she's one of the bravest journalists out there. That is hilarious. I will come back to that. Okay, one of the bravest journalists out there, maybe because she's actually making a change instead of just talking about it. Maybe it's the creativity, the willingness to blow up conventions and try something different. It's definitely also the fact that she's an American Jew and an American Zionist who's doing more for Israel than most of us. If I said Bari Weiss is an American Jew doing more for Israel than the people in Israel, Bari Weiss would call for me to get canceled. But there they are in Israel, obviously, duh. And look at what Klein is celebrating. He's like, she's blowing things up. I know, the Israelis love that. But then the funny part, she's so brave. There was a Saturday Night Live skit a long time ago with Martin Short, and they were joking around about, I forget what it was pro-Jewish or against anti-Semitism in Hollywood. And they were like, ooh, very, very bold. Okay. Oh, she's doing pro-Israel propaganda in the American press. Very, very bold. I don't know anyone else doing that. She must be the only one. How could you think that's brave, brother? And creativity, that's the same slop we've been getting for the last 50 years. There's nothing creative about that at all. So, but you know why they frame it that way? Or he does in this op-ed? Because in their minds, they really believe, like they're like, oh, Israel's the victim. And when the American press says that these useless, non-human Palestinians were slaughtered and their 20,000 kids were killed, they shouldn't say that. They shouldn't say they're anti-Israel. The fact that they're reporting honestly about us is unacceptable. Anti-Semites, right? So they believe that. So they think the American press, for just barely sometimes reporting things that are half true, is unacceptably anti-Israel. When in reality, the American press is ridiculous. October 7th happens, they have a perfectly good reaction to that. Outrage, 1,200 dead, 2/3 are civilians. I agree, that is horrible, horrible, right? Then Israel murders over 70,000 people, and I'll give you more of the stats a little bit later. And they're like, yeah, I mean, whatever, collateral damage, who cares? Yeah, it's not important, it's not important. 1,200 in Israel, the new Holocaust. 70 times for the Palestinians, who cares? Whatever, collateral damage, who cares? Yeah, America owes Israel. That's what our press says. You think that's brave or creative? That is exactly the kind of propaganda we've been suffering under with Israeli control of our media the whole time. All right, Mehdi Hassan, by the way, made a good point. He said, The same thing I was saying earlier. Pretty sure if anyone in the US said this, they'd be accused of anti-Semitism, but it's the Jerusalem Post in Israel saying it. So now here comes more hilarity from Klein. He says, there are millions of people who wanted journalism that didn't treat them like idiots or bigots for asking obvious questions, like, why do we owe Israel another 100 billion? Oh, he didn't mention that. People are exhausted by being told what to think instead of being given the information to think for themselves. Is this guy on the same planet? Okay, when you create a newsroom culture, he continues, where certain questions can't be asked, certain facts can't be reported, and certain perspectives can't be expressed, you're serving your staff instead of the public. I couldn't agree more. Good, we finally have agreement. That is literally every newsroom in America for mainstream press about Israel. The minute you ask, hey, wait, why did we give Israel $300 billion? They go, anti-Semite, you're not allowed to ask that question, you're fired, right? Why do you think nobody asks it on air? Because they know they're gonna get fired if you just ask a question. Hey, Israel wants a 20-year memorandum of understanding that would give them another $100 billion. As America's 38 trillion in debt. How dare you ask that question? You're fired, right? That's been 50 straight years in American media. And this brother thinks that Bari Weiss is the one bravely asking questions. Why not slaughter more Palestinians? I was brave enough to ask it. They're asking that in every newsroom in America. All right, so now he talks about the people buying up the media, like Larry Ellison and David Ellison. Larry Ellison's the owner of Oracle. David Ellison, his son, now has bought CBS and gifted it over to Bari Weiss. And as he was buying free press from Bari Weiss, that was her company, he said that he overpaid because she was pro-Israel. That is amazing, okay? And he did. I just talked to another guy from the industry, and we were laughing about how much they overpaid her. So pro-Israel propaganda is rewarded with, in that case, $150 million, okay? So he says media owners shape the prism through which you will be consuming your news. They influence the culture, the hiring, the risk tolerance, what stories get pursued, and which ones get killed. Everyone knows this, nobody likes admitting it because it punctures the myth of editorial independence. Well, again, I agree with the brother, that is true. But again, if I said that about people who are pro-Israel who own the media, in fact, I did say that, and they put me on a top 10 anti-Semite list. But here in Israel, they're like, oh yeah, we gotta buy up all the media in America so we could take our junk propaganda for our terrorist state and shove it down their throats. Thank you for the admission, I appreciate it. He continues, Ellison made a bet on Weiss. He looked at what she built, looked at the audience she commanded, and decided that was worth something, worth bringing into CBS News, even knowing the staff would revolt. They did revolt, Weiss is still there. That tells you who has the power. Okay, Sherlock Holmes figured it out. Well, it's elementary, my dear Watson. The guy with all the money has the power. Whoa, I didn't know you roll like that, Sherlock. Okay, so we figured that out. But wait a minute, that's what, when we say that, you say we're Jew haters. Like, that's insane. By the way, guys, don't get me wrong, and don't get Klein wrong. All the people who own media companies in America are not Jewish. Okay, there's a great variety, etc. So it's very complicated as to the groupthink that has created the culture in Washington and in national media. It isn't a memo. It isn't that they all work for Mossad or whatever. No, they have gotten to a point where so many people have been fired in the past for questioning Israel that the groupthink is no. And it doesn't matter if they're Jewish or not Jewish, etc. And by the way, there's tons of Jewish Americans who are opposed to the genocide of Israel. This isn't about religion. This is about one country wanting to control another country. It doesn't matter what the religion of that country is, doesn't matter what the race, ethnicity is. But here this brother is bragging about it. Like, yeah, we buy the media and then we do pro-Israel propaganda. It's very brave. He says, study what Weiss did, then go do your own version of it. Yeah, brother. Don't worry, mission accomplished. A lot of folks have already done that. So why do they need all that propaganda? Well, so far at a bare minimum, Israel has killed over 70,945 people in Gaza. Probably the number is, not probably, definitely the number is much, much larger because there's thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands of people buried under the rubble because they destroyed almost all of Gaza. 20,000 children have been killed. Over 1,000 babies have been killed, under 1 year old. 1,009 babies murdered by Israel in Gaza. There was 36 kids, not babies, 36 kids killed in Israel. They said it was the new Holocaust. 1,009 babies killed in Gaza. They're like, who cares? Who cares? Stupid terrorist wannabes probably would have grown up to be terrorists. What are they treating Palestinians like they're humans? No, they're never gonna get a state. They're not allowed to exist. Well, what's your beef with them, the Palestinians? They might not allow us to exist if they ever had power, which they don't have any couple of hundred years from now. But you're not allowing them to exist. Aren't you committing the crime that you're complaining that might theoretically happen hundreds of years from now? Yeah, shut up. We already bought CBS and all the media, and now we're bragging about it and rubbing it in your face. America, you're not gonna get any honest news. Klein almost does like a dance about it. Okay, 21,000 children have been permanently disabled, 3,200 aid workers have died, 253 journalists have been killed, and more aid workers and journalists killed than all other conflicts in the world combined, because Israel is now a terrorist state. It murders. It murders at a much greater rate than Hamas does. It's killed 70 times the number of people, but it's not just the number of people. According to the Israeli press, their civilian kill ratio is 83%. Hamas is 67%. Hamas are terrorists because 67% of the people that they kill are civilians, so they are targeting civilians. Israel, 83% of the people that they have killed are civilians because they are obviously targeting civilians and have slaughtered tens of thousands of them. By the way, there is no ceasefire. That's a giant lie told to you by Israeli propaganda known as American media. So far, during the so-called ceasefire, Israel has murdered 425 Palestinians, wounded 1,200 people in a ceasefire. They've murdered 5 Palestinians a day since the ceasefire. Today they killed 14 people, including 5 children, because all they do is slaughter. They're a terrorist government that has bought off a ton of our media and is now bragging about it. So that's what's happening here in America. And in Israel, they're kind of laughing at us, going, ha, there's nothing you could do. We got your government and we got your media. Thank you, Bari Weiss, for being so brave and courageous. Please. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.